Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that you won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show with your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino. How be thy?
Oh, I'll be that good.
Oh, good, good. Well, we're laughing. That's, if you can laugh, it's good.
Yes, it is.
Depends what you're laughing at. Some better than others, but if you can laugh, it's good.
Yes.
It's
so
good.
we're here in the second show of the new year.
Of the new year, 2015.
Oh, that's so weird.
Wow, where did 14 go?
Yeah.
I don't know. Wow.
Where'd that bitch go? Anyway,
some people are glad to see it go. I for one had a pretty good one.
Yeah.
And I wish for myself what I wish for everyone else, a freaking killer 2015.
Yes.
A killer 2015.
I have a feeling we're going to have a killer 2015.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks to all our listeners.
Yes.
Our ever-expanding brood.
And thanks for clicking through the Amazon banner.
Yes.
And the PayPal button.
Awesomeness.
Yeah. Can't thank everybody enough for that.
Keeps the lights on, the wheels turning.
It's, it's kind of a neat thing. Didn't know what that was going to do. And it's like, whoa.
Cool.
I go in there and I check it. I go, whoa, what the hell's that all about?
Thank you all very much.
So yes, thanks. And
it's a small price to pay for the wonderful infotainment that we provide on a weekly basis.
They're not really paying anything because they just get their product and we get a little kick from that. So that's kind of nice because it's free to them.
Right. So you still get us for free then.
Yeah, exactly. And if the comments out on iTunes, thank you for that. More and more of that, please. More.
Sure.
Just go out there, give us because we can rise. If we rise a little bit,
we'll take you with us.
Yes,
that's
and
right.
We'll get guests that that will be like calling us instead of us calling them.
True. Our phone will ring instead of theirs. But that's okay either way. I love it either way.
One very cool thing.
Okay.
We've got Mr. Zach Wild from Black Label Society now follows us on Instagram.
Awesome.
And it was just a little shout out to him for Merry Christmas, and he followed us back. So I was like, whoa, okay. So that's a really cool thing. I like Zach.
Well, Zach, you got to listen too, man. You got to listen. You'll enjoy it. If you got downtime, you'll enjoy it.
Yeah. I think he would like this show.
Put the headphones on and,
Exactly.
Enjoy it during the bus ride.
When he's not doing 17,000 scales a day, or whatever he does, or lifting weights, or
the body needs an hour rest here and there.
Yeah.
So take us along. But thank you, Mr. Wild.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the other day, real quick, we were talking to Carlos Alomar.
Yes, we were.
Very interesting interview.
Great guy.
I tell everybody go back and listen to that interview if you're just listening now. That interview really cool because it's a guy that worked with Paul McCartney, Mick Jagger, and of course David Bowie. And
all the recognizable Bowie licks.
Yeah. And he you don't meet those guys. Those there ain't many guys that cover those three icons. Right. In their stable.
Right.
Right. Some guys go, I work with Jagger, or I work with McCartney, or I work with David Bowie, but never really all three. And so it was a very interesting thing. But one of the things, as he was talking, the song is called Uptown Funk.
Yes.
I played you a bit of it, and it's from...
and it is funky.
Hold on. It's... Why can't I find the guy's name now? It's from
Ronson.
Yeah, Mark Ronson.
Mark Ronson.
Jesus.
Mark Ronson.
I'm having a hard day.
That's okay.
Anyway, but Bruno Mars actually sings on the song. Mm-hmm. Okay, Mark Ronson is the producer. He's the guy that puts it all together. Well, that song's like, it's in the charts. I mean, it's getting hit on all of the mix stations around the country. Those instruments that you hear, he's old school, so those are real horns, and everything is real.
And it starts out with real Carlos.
Yes,
Alomar.
it does.
Yeah, it's funky.
His part is in there.
Absolutely.
And very cool, to hear that. And then, of course, we interviewed him, and I got some brownie points because I got to go home and tell my daughter, who loves the song.
Oh, cool.
And she was like, "You talked to the guy and I said, "Yeah," and that boosts
high five to Dad.
That boosts me up a little bit.
That's it. High five to Dad. Awesome.
I mean, I won't be getting any concert tickets or anything, but it's
brownie points are okay too.
Yeah, but it's a really cool video, and of course the song is really good too.
Yeah,
and it helps our buddy Carlos Alomar out.
Absolutely.
I'm sure he gets a kick off of that every time somebody cha-chings. And but yeah, really cool, and I like the song a lot. I don't think anybody's really going to dislike it. It's got a good rhythm.
Yeah, it seems to be relatively universally acceptable.
It's not a guitar-heavy song.
No,
it's a lot of horns, a lot of bass, a lot of drums. Standard stuff. But it's definitely a catchy tune.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, you can't be angry listening to that
tune. Damn it!
Yeah. Damn it! So even further back, Mr. Birdsong.
Oh, Dean Birdsong, yeah, from Warehouse Guitar Speaker.
He sent you this massive.
Right, which we touched base on a few episodes ago, three, something,
something like that.
I finally had a chance to audition really quickly. Now it wasn't the best of auditions, but I wanted to. I wanted to hear the speaker, but I wanted to hear it compared to an East reference 12. I was really curious as to whether I might want to offer this as a
alternative.
Yeah, somebody for some reason thinks that they need a 200-watt speaker in an 18-watt East amp. I'd like to be able to offer them the option
and a deformed back.
Well, yeah. See, there's that. There's but yeah, it does weigh a pound or 20.
It's got a little weight to it.
But anyway, I did audition it. Tone-wise, I have to say they're almost identical tone-wise.
Really?
It's really cool. The voice is... I mean, if I took an East reference 12 and put it next to any Jensen or any Celestion, they're not going to sound similar,
Sure.
And they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
This was so close.
Wow.
Voice-wise, it was really cool. A little bit brighter of a speaker.
Oh, really?
Yes, which shocked me too.
Yeah.
Just a little bit brighter. I don't think it's quite as efficient, and I don't think it has quite as much bottom end as the East reference 12. And one may be leading me to think that the other is true. Like maybe if it had more bottom end, maybe I would perceive it as being a little more efficient. Possibly. I don't know. But it just seemed to have a little bit less output. So, I'm thinking a little less efficient and a little less bottom end. But then again, it's a 200-watt speaker that I'm driving with a Club 18, and it wasn't at huge volume levels.
Yeah.
So, if you push it harder, it may have some more bottom end. But the thing is, I mean, if you've got like a strong 50 or 100-watt single 12 combo, I think it'd be a freaking killer speaker for that, because it's
you'd probably be hitting levels of what like a Marshall Stack would get to. Back in the day, I heard those Mark 1s, Mark 2s were capable of doing that.
Yeah, they had
single 12, you could hear it.
They had some nuts behind it.
With like a half stack.
Yeah.
So, very cool.
Yeah,
man.
no, but it's cool. The voice, I love the voicing of the speaker. I may offer it as an option if somebody wants a single 12 Arena 50, or God forbid I make something more powerful in the future. But I think it would be great for that, because I wouldn't. Yeah. I've steered away from doing 112 combos in an Arena 50 amp, just because I really didn't want anything to happen to the speaker. I want my amps to be reliable, and I didn't want to put like maybe a 60 or 70 watt 12 out there with my 50 watts, and then have something happen and have a reliability issue. But this would probably be a great option for it. So
Cool.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Birdsong. Thank you for the opportunity to audition it.
And I have something here. I totally forgot about it, so I'm going to do it now because that's what I do.
Okay.
So over the Christmas break, you and your lovely wife, Petra, bought me the coolest goddamn guitar strap I've ever owned. Okay? And I can't even thank you enough. When I opened that thing up, I was like, holy crap. I mean, it's really, if you go on our, I posted a picture of it. It went all the way down to Facebook. You can see my SG with the strap hanging
I
over
did
it.
see the picture. I did see
Yes.
the picture. And, you're welcome, but it's just a guitar strap, my brother.
It's
my brother.
But it's very cool. I've never had one like that. Mine have always been just plain Jane's black, usually like a seatbelt out of a, like an Impala that has two hooks on the end of it. You know how it is. So one thing that I wanted to give you was this new DVD called Eric Clapton, Planes, Trains, and Eric.
Awesomeness.
So that's a belated Merry Christmas.
Very cool.
I watched it the other night. That is a documentary about him quitting.
Ah.
Because he said he was going to stop touring when he turned 70.
Mm-hmm.
And that is about that story.
Wow.
And
very cool.
They interview the entire band. They follow him. He has a huge a relationship with the Japanese.
Okay.
Huge, insane. He doesn't like to leave when he gets there.
Wow.
He said out of all the places he's ever been, that is the one place where he just loves to go and play music.
Wow.
And it gets into a whole thing. It's
they
very
do appreciate
cool.
their music, man. They really do treat artists very, very well.
So they show footage. This footage is just from like March. Okay.
This past March.
Yeah. And there is 12,000 people in this hall.
Mm-hmm.
Not one cell phone up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's sitting there. You could have heard a pin drop during the soft parts of the songs.
Nice.
Just total respect. And a lot of times they don't clap. They do like a hand thing where they wave their hands.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of different.
They don't want to make noise during the performance or something?
I don't know what that entails.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like when you go to a ball game over there, they take these clappers and they clap them together for applause. They don't, it must be, who knows? It's a different culture.
Oh, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I don't know how they do their thing, but I saw there was people clapping, but there was a lot of people doing the hand thing where they're just kind of like waving.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I think American audiences should kind of take heed to some of this stuff because we talked about this. We've had this discussion. When you're going to a show and there's 150 cell phones and even 5 or 6 iPads now up in the air, what are you doing? You're not. Who cares about your YouTube page? Nobody cares.
Right.
Nobody.
And if it gets posted at all,
yeah,
you're lucky. Most of that, you're never going to go back and look at anyway.
Never.
We've all done it.
Yeah.
We've all done it.
And then you look at it on your phone, you go, "What the hell?"
Yeah, I need room. I need more room for some other stupid picture.
No, delete this.
Delete this.
Yeah.
Right. We've all done it, man. You'll never look at it again. Be in the moment. Enjoy the damn show.
Yeah.
So
I can recall shows back. The very first show that I saw in 1979 was Heart and Firefall at the Baltimore Civic Center, when it was called the Civic Center, and I can recall those parts in that show because I was in the moment.
You were there, right?
Yeah. And,
mentally and physically.
Yeah. And I can run down that list of shows that I've seen over the years. And, it's all there. So do you have to take a video of it? No. I mean,
the video's in your mind, man.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah, man. And
be present. Be present. Well, speaking of shows, our guest today is it's really funny because he used to work for us years ago. He actually was one of the guys way back in the beginning that was building Buddha amps.
Get out of here.
For me. Yeah.
That's cool.
And moved to eventually he was a DC guy, but he eventually moved to the left coast. He's in Washington now, I believe. and still builds amplifiers of his own, and does a lot of tech work. And his I'm guessing this is the latest band that he's been out with. Probably, and hopefully he's still out with them. But I don't know if all our audience will recognize, but maybe the younger ones would. I'm not familiar with the material, but I know it's a large band.
Yeah.
He's tech for the guys from Death Cab For Cutie now.
Oh, no lie.
So he's he went from building amps to in the Baltimore area to moving to the West Coast and doing some touring and some shows of his own. So
cool.
Yeah. So we will bring him in and get his story and see where he started and where he is now. So without further ado, as soon as we come back, we will bring you Mr. Jesse Quitslund.
Hi, this is Brad Divins, and you're listening to Amps and Axes.
And as promised, on the Skype from the Northwest, we have Mr. Jesse Quitslund. Jesse, how are you, man?
I'm really good. Long time no speaky.
Been a very long time. I can't even remember how long. Do you?
At least 10 years, because I've been out here that long. So
yeah, it had to be. Wow, that's a
dog's age.
Yeah, the good old days, man. The good old days. Well, great to speak with you again. And in case our audience is wondering, well, of course they're wondering what we're talking about, because only we know. Jesse used to work for me and Buddha Amps way back in the day. He, if you own a Buddha amp, there's a chance that Jesse built it. So
wow,
yeah, he was a hell of a worker too, I got to say. Good job for you, man.
Well, thank you very much, and I can definitely thank you for starting me on the road of amp building, which I've continued to do since we parted ways, and it's kept me out of trouble all these years.
I was just saying, don't blame me for that. But yeah, and that's great, and we'll get into that. I saw some of your work, and well, at least virtually, and we'll touch base on that. But with our guests, I always like to go back a little to the beginning, because you're not only an amp builder and what the other things that you're doing now, but you are also a player and still are, I'm sure. So let's go back to the early days of Mr. Jesse Q and find out where you came from, where you came from, and what started you on the instrument.
Well, I grew up in Washington, D.C., and starting in my, I guess, freshman year of high school, I started kind of hanging around and repairing guitars at a little music shop in D.C. called Downtown Music, which was a fairly short walk from the house that I grew up in, my parents' house, and that was really the beginning of it. I kind of started fixing and soldering and unsoldering guitars before I was really even able to play them, and I've kind of always kind of been more on the tech end of things, I guess, than as a player, although I certainly do enjoy playing. But I was a kid who used to drag home TV sets out of the garbage and take them apart in my parents' backyard, and I guess that's really where it all began. But anything technical has always been kind of fascinating to me. So
self-taught in the trade?
Pretty much. I mean, I can credit you and Steve at Angela Instruments with giving me a lot of information and kind of pointers. And the first guy that I worked for was named Stevie Ray Reynolds. He was the repairman at that shop I mentioned, Downtown Music. And he was kind of the first guy to start sharing information with me, which I just absorbed like a sponge. And I guess I can thank Steve at Angela Instruments for giving me a real appetite for old books on tube electronics, which I kind of collected voraciously and still track down on eBay and stuff. And cool. That's really where I found a lot of stuff out, was reading old books and knowing good, real smart guys like you who actually went to school for it.
Yeah, Steve was cool. I used to do a lot of work for Steve too, repair type of work when it was like a little over his head or whatever the case, where he was too busy, Mm-hmm. But yeah, he was one of the first guys that really got into the old stuff. Not so much like vintage pedals and things where, there was some other guys, but somewhat of old amps, but old parts, old catalogs, old, anything that was just beginning to be called vintage in that, type of thing. He was kind of the king in that for a while. Matter of fact, I mean, his catalogs are legendary. Do you remember those, Jesse?
Yeah, well, actually, the very first year, it was kind of a turning point in time, really. The very first year I went to work for Steve was helping him put together his last catalog, which would have been, I think, 96 maybe.
Wow.
And then shortly after that, he transitioned into having a website, which was a real change for him. And I guess really, honestly, in retrospect, kind of early on in the whole online world of commerce.
Sure. Yeah.
And, I guess for him, the rest is history. I still order a lot of parts from those guys. And I saw him and Sue. I was passing through the Ram's Head in Baltimore with an artist named Nico Case this past summer. And I had Steve and Sue out to the show, and it was really good to see those guys and catch up.
Nice. I like Susan, too. She's a great girl.
Yeah, she's sweet.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool, man. I didn't know you were in town. I would have.
Well, I'll drop you a line next time. I'll probably be back east at some point this coming year on the never-ending tour of my life.
That's for sure.
You can get him to wire up some chassis.
That's right.
There you go. In his spare time on the road. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Send me the parts and I'll just drop them off when I blow through town.
There you go. Done that before. But, so, you started working on stuff and then eventually started playing. I know you had a couple of successful bands around town when you were working with me.
Yeah, I was playing. I started in high school playing with some guys who are still really good friends of mine, and kind of that coincided with this was back in the late '80s. We were really into sort of '60s garage rock, and of course our equipment had to be kind of older than us. That was one of our our sort of prerequisites. So we had a bunch of old horrible Vox amps and guitars. In fact, we were very briefly an all Vox band. That didn't last long. And
well, you have to travel with so many of them because you don't know which one's going to work on any given night.
Yeah, we quickly abandoned the solid state Vox gear for Fender tube amps like that. But yeah, that was kind of the beginning of my era of collecting old gear too, which I think kind of goes hand in hand with fixing stuff and finding out about the sort of almost lost art of equipment that really came from the kind of the golden age, I think, of tube gear, which was the 50s and 60s.
Sure. Yeah, that's what we all still know and love, and things. I don't know if I could say things are getting better when it comes to the newer technology. It's different, and it's of course it's new technology, and there's of course room for that. But I as much as I'd like to believe that someday somebody's going to come up with something that's actually going to replace a tube amp, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well, if you really think about it, in the sense of they kind of hit that home run early on, and ever since then, everybody's that new wheel comes out every now and then to try to see if they can top what they've done, but yet it always seems to go back. Now the technology is getting close, but it's sort of like CGI, right? Like 5 years ago, you would look at CGI. If you looked at it today, the same CGI then, you'd be like, "Well, I see the line where the cartoon is." You know?
Right.
But now it's a little bit better. But it's still you can still kind of guess when it's CGI.
You still know it's CGI, right? Yeah.
Maybe 10 years from now, it'll look even more polished.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, the funny thing is, I think to me is it's what we grew up with and what our used to seeing, and for the kids who are growing up kind of in more of the computer world, they're going to be used to seeing that kind of information, and it's going to be a very different experience for them to say listen to an old cassette tape, which I think that's something that our ears are just tuned into, having spent so many years listening to stuff in those kind of formats. And I mean, just as an example, I did a tour about a year ago, and really with a lot of encouragement for me, the guitar player switched over from, I think he had like, stereo Marshall stacks and a big pedal board, and he switched over to having everything on a laptop and Ableton software. And so his guitar rig was a laptop, a Mo2, and a couple DIs. And I have to say, coming through a PA in a arena, it sounded awesome. It sounded so much better than his old, the amps were just constant headaches, and you're dealing with rooms and stuff that are, you're really kind of fighting things in a way. But the newer technology, eliminated a lot of problems for us. Not to mention the fact I had the easiest setup.
Now, see, there was the motive. There was the ulterior motive. Then I don't have to lug amplifiers.
See, my thing is that, knowing this equipment, because, of course, this is my profession, working with computers, I wouldn't trust. I would have 6 of them.
I was going to say, there's got to be some kind of redundancy, I would think.
They would all be on. Yeah. And it would be a matter of pulling the USB out of one and pushing it into the other, or whatever it took, because I would really have a... there's no redundancy inside of a laptop.
Right.
No, absolutely. And we did have a redundant rig for the tracks, of course, which are really important. And I think maybe the biggest problem, kind of knock on wood, we had in that tour was occasionally he'd walk on stage with his laptop and the battery would be just about dead. So it would be kind of like a nail biter until the bars got up into the healthy range,
That's one of the things you probably should learn not to forget, Got to remember to charge. It's like a phone. You put it down at night. It's like you wake up in the morning and go, damn. I forgot to plug the charger in.
Absolutely.
But who were we having this conversation? Was it Brad? About because I was asking him about backline as opposed to virtual, and I think it all boiled in his mind, and I don't know about you, Jesse, but in his mind it all boiled down to the act and the type of music, really, because there are some that are just fine with a rig like that, and there are some like. I just can't ever see AC/DC doing that,
No.
It's
or Airborne.
Or Airborne,
right? Those guys seem like that would be their calling. That's their thing. Right. It's like they don't stop smoking. Like the guys in ACD, they all smoke. And they've been like, don't you know this is bad for you, And they're like, nah.
I wouldn't play the same if I was healthier.
Exactly.
I don't know.
So it's like, you can't talk them out of it. But, a band like Avenged Sevenfold, I totally expect to never see an amplifier on that stage.
Different acts definitely have different. There's all sorts of things there. There's sort of like the... some musicians, and for that matter, audience members, really do have golden ears, and they can tell the difference every time. And there's the sort of the comfort level of artists. I know personally, speaking for myself, I absolutely feel more comfortable with like a 60s Gretsch in my hands plugged into a low wattage amp. And that's just, that's where I'm happiest, regardless of whether... I could probably hear the difference between that and a virtual version of it. It just is a vibe thing,
Yeah.
It's nice to have that interaction that you get from actually moving some air, behind you, and what it does with the guitar, and
if nothing else, an ISO cab. If you had to do that. Because I just I've always said, I'm like, the simulation is nice. But it never changes. It never kind of gets that... Because, as those tubes are getting older, the sound moves a little bit,
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely.
And I kind of like that.
For better or worse, it moves,
exactly. Yeah.
It's a living, breathing thing. And
I kind of dig that myself.
Yeah.
Because...
And, if you have an off night with an amp or something, it just makes you play a little harder,
That's right.
It just pushes your limits, man. It's like, damn it, I got to get this to sound right,
Phil X, he has a couple videos out, and one of them he was saying he went out one night and his battery for his overdrive had died. So he just looked at his left hand. He said, "Fingers, don't fail me now. It's time to play."
That's right.
Just got to hit those strings a little harder. That's all.
For all it's worth. For all it's worth. So where was it? Oh, the you were obviously playing in some bands, local bands around here that were doing well. And don't I have a CD of one of your bands, I think?
Oh, I'm sure you do. Yeah, I gosh, that probably would be the Dusters, maybe, who was the band I was kind of doing a little bit of touring with around the time we were working together.
Yeah.
And I was playing bass in that band. And man, talk about amps and equipment. I was playing a Mustang bass through sort of modified Bassman 10 combo. And also I'd used Marshall heads over in Europe and stuff. But I remember when we recorded the record that you're probably speaking of, the guy who we did some mixing and mastering with was kind of like, wow, man, that's like a lot of amp sound with your bass. It sounds great. I can never get like a good amp sound on tape. It was just sort of like he really wanted to know what my secret was, and it wasn't really a big secret, but I just pulled a lot of parts out of that amp really, and turned it up. And I mean, for bass, there's nothing like power tube compression. It's just. I was basically plugged right into that amp, and it just really, you didn't need to do much more than that as far as I was concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's, I've said this before, for me, there always needs to be a little hair on the bass, man.
Mm-hmm.
There really does.
Oh, absolutely.
My old bass player had a Strategy 400.
Okay. Mesa?
Yeah. And he later got rid of that. You worked on that amp, by the way.
Probably.
And later he got rid of that amp, and he got an SVT4 Pro, which is the 1600-watt bridged version. And
which obviously has a solid state output stage.
It's a hybrid, yeah.
Right.
So I remember that 300-watt tube amp, it hung right there with that 1600-watt beast. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because he would actually rip the cones on the Mesa Boogie heavy duty 10s.
Really?
Yeah, he would rip them around the edge because it would punch so hard, and it was just a beast of an amp. And the SVT did not do that. It didn't have that thud. That it got low, it got crazy, but it wasn't as just. It was
so 400 tube watts did more damage.
I think it was 3. If I'm not mistaken.
Well, Strategy 400. Strategy 400. I think they were supposed to be 400 watts. They probably weren't.
But 12 tubes in it, 12 power tubes. What would that put you at, 3 or 4?
Probably 3 real 100 watts, but
maybe like rated it.
They might have touted it at 4. Who knows,
but I just remember it was just so much more oomph behind that thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you call a ripping bass sound.
There you go.
Literally.
Literally.
He about went broke replacing speakers.
Well, then he needed to get a girly solid state amp.
That's what he did.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I like a little hair on the bass. So, all right, let's get to the move. What took you out west, man? I mean, because you were here for so long, and I'm assuming having fun and working.
Family, really. I was kind of the last left on the East Coast. The last one of my family left. Like I said, grew up in Washington D.C. and my parents moved out west in the late '90s, and my brother came to school, went to school in Portland, Oregon, where he still lives. So I would just come out here for the holidays and see my extended family as well as my real close family members, and just enjoy the area out here where I've been visiting since I was a kid. And just I'd come out here for the holidays, and every year the feeling got stronger of kind of like, what am I doing in DC? It's just so much. The quality of life is really nice out here, and I have a good friend of mine, Rick King, who owns a guitar shop called Guitar Maniacs in Tacoma, and I've known Rick since the late 80s when he was just buying and selling guitars kind of as a hobby. And I knew I had potentially some work at that shop, which has been really good to me for the last 10 years.
Cool.
So those were the big reasons, and just I was kind of ready for a change. In fact, I'm looking forward to moving down to LA for a year or two coming up in the next couple months. So that's another 10-year mark for me. It's kind of time to try something a little different, and I have a lot of friends down there. It'll be another interesting kind of change of scenery.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any particular reason other than change of scenery?
Well, my fiance got a job down there. Cool. We're just going to go down there and kind of give it a try. I think a year or two is the most either of us wants to commit to LA. Time will tell.
That's all your lungs can take from all the smog.
Yeah, hopefully we're going to be close to the water, so the air will be a little better. But that's certainly one thing I love about the Northwest. The air up here is just clean and smells great all year round. It's nice. Although Tacoma, where I lived the last 10 years, is famous for the Tacoma aroma. So I'll qualify that a little bit. They have a paper mill there that's...
I was just going to say, is it paper mill? Because I did some laser training in Portland, Oregon, and yeah, it's obviously the same aroma. It's paper mills, and you know it when you smell it.
Absolutely.
It can't be any worse than the dog food plant in the one town I went to in Ireland. And I got out of the car and I went up to one of the. I said, "What in the hell is that smell?" And the girl looked at me and she goes, "What smell?" And I said, "Whatever that is in the air."
Born and raised here, huh?
And she goes, "Oh, that's the dog food plant. That's horse." And I went, "Okay." And we got back in the car and we left. Dude, it was horrific.
Wow.
Treasured memories.
Yeah, absolutely. Good or bad, they're treasured.
Oh, you couldn't get away from it either.
Wow.
The whole town.
Wow. So, okay, you're up at, would you say Guitar Maniac?
Yeah, Guitar Maniacs has been a shop that I guess Rick opened in maybe like 1990. It's been a long time now.
Wow.
It's kind of an institution in Tacoma in the Northwest. It's like a, vintage shop. And Rick actually sort of was a vintage dealer who kind of came up right behind Steve at Angela and Skip at City Lights and some of the sort of original East Coast guys anyway. So he's been in the game for a long time, and he specialized in pedals for a really long time. He was kind of the king of fuzz pedals and stuff when those were like real happening in the 90s.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's they're still happening, and there's like a bazillion of them now.
Yeah. Oh, the boutique pedal thing it's pretty impressive, honestly. I think it's really cool because it's kind of it's like a more kind of a smaller scale version of the sort of boutique amp explosion of the 90s. There's just a ton of people out there making stuff, and I think that's great. I personally have found some boutique pedals that I really love, and ones that I have a big collection of pedals. Not that I play them that much, but some of the boutique ones are really cool these days for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see tons of them now, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like everybody in their basement.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Craig Poole from the guitar shop outside of Atlanta just sent me one of his to check out. So yeah, everybody's building them, and it's pretty cool because they're some are marginally different than others, or marginally different than the pedal that they were kind of like bred from,
mm-hmm.
and then others are just completely off the freaking wall.
Yeah,
yeah.
And those are the ones. If you got time to work with them, or a place in your music for them, or especially a place in your recording
mm-hmm.
to do, you can get some wild stuff happening nowadays.
Yeah, it ain't like it used to be.
No, it used to be a tube screamer and a delay.
Yeah,
and if you were lucky, maybe a phaser.
Memory Man Deluxe.
Oh yeah.
The Phase 90 or the Small Stone.
Oh yeah.
What else? There was the MXR flanger. Of course, you had the
the ADA flanger was a big one.
Well, the ADA,
the big pedal.
Yeah, you had to plug it in the wall.
Mm-hmm.
An external power supply.
That's right. That's right. But it's all good. It's all good. It's better than good now.
Exactly.
So it's just kind of like sensory overload, though, because it's to the point where you don't know which one to pick anymore.
Yeah.
And unless you can afford to buy everything under the sun.
Well, I like all guys that build the overdrives, every single one of them. This is transparent.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what the hell am I giving you $300 for?
I want to hear something when I hit the switch. Damn it!
This isn't going to do anything to your sound. No, I specifically want to do something to my sound.
Right. That's.
Well, yeah, it's funny. Like I really, I think back on, I was touring with the artist Lucinda Williams. I guess around 2005, and we pulled through New York City, and Susie Matthews from Electro Harmonics came out to the show with some pedals for the guitar player Doug Pettibone to try out. And she had a real early Pog. I think that's right when they came out with the Pog, and we all just were kind of blown away by it. And I remember actually Doug playing pedal steel through it, and we're just like, man, listen to how this thing tracks, And
wow.
It's kind of the clear winner of the couple pedals that she brought out. And, that's a pedal that really did something new, and it, in its own way, kind of changed the sound of music. I mean, there's bands like the White Stripes and a band I worked for, the AaAs, who owe a lot of their songs almost to the sound of that pedal.
Wow.
Especially if you're just got one guitar in the band, but it's something that's so distinctive and familiar in that it has some octave effects, but did things in a totally new way. And that's the cool thing about music technology, is there is always room for kind of innovation. And I mean, you especially listen to electronic music these days, the EDM scene, and there's just whole sounds and songs that are bred out of like new effects and plugins and stuff that people are just they're just coming up with new stuff all the time. It's really cool.
That's very cool. I wouldn't have thought that. I wouldn't have given it enough credit that a pedal actually changed the sound of things. But from what you're saying, that these players relied heavily on that to, maybe to support the sound of the band in general. And I mean, you don't really think about things in that scope. At least I didn't. But I guess if you're on the road with these guys and they're trying to make their band sound bigger and better and different, especially if it's a small ensemble,
Yeah.
I guess some of these things are real game changers for them.
Think about like Robin Trower and the Univibe.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Hendrix and him, that thing, that was like a sound for a lot of people at that time.
Absolutely.
And Robin Trower has made a career out of that sound.
At a bridge of size, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've seen that guy live. I was like, I don't think he turns that pedal off.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what you've got Stevie Wonder plugging a clavinet into, it was another Electro Harmonics pedal, I think. What's that sound from like Superstition and stuff like that?
Oh my God, I can't remember.
Yeah, another real distinctive effect, though, that was just, nobody had thought of plugging a keyboard into one of those things until he tried it, so.
Yeah, and there you go. A classic sound is born,
Absolutely.
That's
yeah, Mike Matthews, man, I always think of that guy as somebody, once again, who just, I mean, you kind of can't undervalue his contribution to sounds that we almost take for granted,
Yeah.
I mean, the Big Muff, there's been so many bands that have relied on that over the years. It's crazy, and it's really funny to me now working in a guitar shop. Those Russian Big Muffs have like become the real hot item for the doom metal player, just because they've got this bottom end that you can't find in other versions of the exact same circuit, mind you, but just that Russian version has got its own tone. It's funny.
The one that looks like it was made from melted down tanks.
Yes.
Yeah. Apparently, I've heard stories, which I believe, trying to take those things apart a few times, that they were that was like the switching box for a missile launcher or something like that.
That's too funny.
In all reality, it was a military surplus thing that they kind of repurposed for that. So.
Oh, I don't doubt that. And the switch in there is so unique. I've never seen another switch like it, except maybe on an old vacuum cleaner or something. It was bizarre.
I had one of the originals.
The Big Muffs?
Yeah. But I just loved it because here was an 11-year-old kid telling everybody, well, this is my Big Muff pie.
Mm-hmm. Right. That was the joke behind it. It's your what?
Yeah, that didn't go over well with the family. I'm like, what?
I was proud of my little muff that I had too. underrated pedal.
Oh, for sure.
They had a couple versions of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the little muff. I have a couple of the Russian ones. I forgot. There's different versions of those as well.
Yep.
Sovtek was making those, right?
Oh,
Wasn't it Sovtek at that time?
That's Mike Matthews' new sensor. That's Sovtek, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there's different versions of those. I forgot exactly what they're called, the different ones, but they're broken down into like, oh, you've got this version, you've got this version, you've got this version. Just like
the letters version. Ooh.
The what?
There's like different graphics, It's like some have big letters and some have smaller letters, and there really is a subculture built up around those things now. It's funny.
Yeah, for sure.
The muff pie. I couldn't stop laughing when I saw it. I was like, this can't be real. And I was 11.
That's why he did it. You know how many more he sold because he called it something
God,
like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Mike's a marketing genius.
Yeah.
He is, absolutely.
He totally is. All right, so what got Jesse off the bench? I guess I'm assuming you were doing repairs at the guitar shop, but
Yep.
What offer got you off the bench and on the road?
Well, it's funny. I started touring really as an outgrowth of repairing stuff. I was fixing stuff for bands in D.C. and kind of in the post-Nirvana gold rush, a bunch of bands that I knew, got signed and suddenly had like enough money to pay people to come out on the road with them. It's usually back in those days just a sound person and a kind of roadie driver type who would like, sell t-shirts during the show and set stuff up and break stuff down and fix things when they broke and drive the equipment van. And it was something that I never really pursued as a career or anything like that, but it just kind of one thing led to another. I honestly thought when I moved out west that kind of work was going to dry up for me because most of the people I knew were back east. But honestly, it seems like the older I get, that list just gets shorter, or the list that I'm on gets shorter anyway. And it's kind of kept me busy. And it's a very different experience from say working in a guitar shop or building custom gear, and it certainly has informed especially the equipment that I build. The first kind of custom amps that I built were for a band, Death Cab For Cutie, that I was touring with, and the guitar player Ben was getting ready for a tour, and he wanted to start using his old Silvertone 1484, the little twin 12 heads. And I've rebuilt a whole pile of those things over the years, and they're great sounding amps. And I was going through them and just thinking, oh man, I really hope I don't have to fix this thing on the road, because they're like rat's nests inside.
Oh yeah.
And not very roadworthy, not to mention that they'll kind of shock you without some modifications. And so I just kind of got the idea to like, wow, what if I built one of these things like a high watt amp, just military style construction, something
totally bulletproof.
Something you could work on, underneath a stage somewhere with a flashlight in your mouth. And that was sort of the genesis of the Acme amps that I'm building these days. And yeah, certainly the amps that I've built for bands that I've been able to kind of keep up over the years and have something come back after it's been on the road for a couple years and realize like, oh, I really need to start using Loctite.
Oh yeah. We've all gone through that experience.
Yeah, little things like that. But that certainly, like I said, informed my kind of design aesthetic. And then I guess most recently I built some tube spring reverb units, which have been really my most kind of popular product, and those things are keeping me busy these days. They're really fun too.
Wow.
And I guess the genesis for that design was as you mentioned, Steve Melchizedkian's a real kind of parts kingpin, and he kind of hipped me to the value of old parts. And ever since then, I've really searched out surplus places, and you know, a number of times I've bought out, you know, electronic repair places or distributors that were going out of business. And Tacoma had a great spot that was called Puget Sound Organ Repair. It was a real old school, you know, home tube organ, you know, Hammonds and those kind of things. Cool. Which were really popular back in the day, and these guys had their little home repair van that they would drive over to people's houses to do home servicing. Wow. And they had this great shop that was just a gold mine of speakers and transformers and tubes. And whenever I needed some really oddball part, they usually had it. And those guys went out of business a couple years ago, and one of the first things I did, I bought, you know, carloads of stuff off of them. And the first time I walked in there, I was like, I'll take every spring reverb pan you guys have in the whole building, and I'll take every non-organ related schematic that you have, which was like a whole filing cabinet of paper. And when I kind of got to cataloging all these spring reverb units, I realized if I sell these things on eBay, I will never get rid of. I have like 150, you know, spring pans, vintage ones, and that's kind of when I got the bright idea that I should build something around them, because otherwise I just never get rid of the darn things. So, are you that big of a fan of the older vintage pans as opposed to the newer ones? Do you find a big difference? Absolutely. And I mean, the new ones are okay, and they can sound good, I think, but there's definitely a charm to the older pans, and I've been surprised now that I have this huge supply of them, just how different they sound. I mean, you could take 5 of them that they're exact same type, and each one's going to have just slightly different character to it, like anything, like guitars or amps. And I ended up with a huge number of the sort of, you know, the ones that are used in Ampeg amps, the FB type pans, which are not as popular as the ones that are used in Fender amps.
Right, with the higher impedance input.
Yeah. So given how many of those I have, I kind of designed the box that I built around those, and I stole the driver circuit actually out of going back to the Silvertone 1484, which I think has the best, worst reverb sound of all time. I mean, it's just completely blown up and super trashy, but really great sounding. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of stole the driver circuit from that and sort of, you know, Frankensteined it together with the sort of topology of the controls of a Fender reverb unit, which I've been a big fan of. I have a number of the outboard Fender units, which I've played through for years, and kind of didn't think I would be able to top those. So that was sort of my challenge: is can I make something that sort of does the things that a Fender unit can't do? Wow. Which in my mind are just getting you a really deep, intense reverb, and then also getting you a little more bottom end. The Fender ones tend to be a little, I guess, thin, for lack of a better word. They don't have a ton of bottom to them, so I kind of set out to do that, and I think I accomplished my goal. But when you turn one of these reverb units of mine all the way up, it just sounds like, you know, 1,000 Marshall stacks at the bottom of the Grand Canyon or something. It's
what a great description, man! What a great description.
Now, you never had any formal. This was all just by learning from you, Jeff,
and
Steve, and wow,
and just doing. You know?
Yeah, doing is the important thing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Experience is everything. And I will say Steve was a real inspiration, because he was like the least technical person. And I mean, he had guys like Ken Fisher at Trainwreck and you, Jeff, who were real knowledgeable and really had some honest to God schooling with this stuff, who just kind of showed him what to do. Mm-hmm. And he just sort of learned by, you know, by example, I guess. He really didn't have much of an understanding on a technical level of what was going on. And I used to just ask him so many questions, and he either really didn't have the answers to them, but his answer was always kind of like, just build an amp, like just stop bugging me and build an amp. And he really pushed me out of the nest kind of on just diving into stuff. And I'd been, you know, soldering guitars together, so I definitely knew how to solder 2 wires together and kind of basically how a potentiometer worked and stuff. And then it really is, I think, especially the years of repairing stuff that really kind of informed me and got me into studying old schematics and kind of comparing different circuits and having a little bit of an idea what's actually going on.
That's really cool. Now, see, somebody like Jesse is a real prize to have with you on the road as a tech. Because I've seen guys out there that if it's much more past changing strings and tuning guitars and maybe guitar intonation,
they're lost.
Yeah, it's like, you can't get into the guitar and fix it. Or if it's more than like changing a fuse on an amp, they really, this guy, you want to have people like Jesse on the road with you.
Yeah,
and that's why he's busy. He's another guy that's like, the phone rings and, hey, go out with us, And
Now, my question is, how many times have you woke up on the floor going, what the hell just happened?
Knock on wood, which I'm literally going to do right now. I've gotten zapped a few times, but never that badly, thank God. Yeah. And actually, ironically, I don't have a Jeff will know what I'm talking about, but I don't have a bleeder resistor in my Silvertone circuit, and probably most of the times I've gotten shocked, certainly in the recent past, was on my own amps because I was just impatiently tweaking something and would have it on, and then seconds later be flipping it over and poking around in there, changing something, and shoot, I forgot. Now, this thing holds a charge.
For sure.
Just so our listeners know, that bleed-off resistor is on one of the caps, one of the capacitors that's
right,
inside there.
And when you power the amp down,
it's supposed to discharge
lowers the voltages very quickly, as opposed to letting them just hang there in limbo until
for like 2 years.
Yeah,
could be. Yeah. I mean, we've all done that. Everybody. Ask me, you ever got shocked? Yeah, it just keeps me going for another hour. Why not?
It wakes you up, that's for sure.
It does wake you up. Absolutely.
It's like grabbing the back of the yoke of an old tube TV.
Oh, yeah. That's a little bit more, though. Grab the little high voltage lead on the side.
Oh, yeah.
That could wake you up enough to put you to sleep.
We used to work on monitors, just to talk about that for a second, and we had this monster probe that God knows how many mega ohm resistors were inside this thing, and you'd hook it to the ground, and you'd go in there and touch that wire, and man, the crack of it, no matter how many times you did it, you'd still jump.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, 65,000 volts in those things or something?
Yeah, an old CRT.
Yeah, crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's not that much in an amp, thank God.
I like the low wattage stuff for that reason. Yeah, nothing like the smell of ozone to get you really paying attention.
Well, that's like Jesse was saying, the old Silvertone amps, which he builds a version of now, or at least part of that amp he builds a version of. But most of the switches came with little rubber coats on them
because of the live chassis.
Remember that?
Oh yeah, that's so you don't get shocked.
That's right.
Wow, some of that vintage gear can put you in a grave if you ain't careful.
Well, we've had this conversation with people before, but that's cool, man. I mean, and his product line is called Acme, and has been for years. And
do you have a picture of the coyote on it?
No, although, that really is my inspiration. And for years, and maybe someday I'll make this a reality, I just always wanted to build a kit of some kind of guitar or an amp that came in a big wooden crate and had a giant blueprint that that was always definitely where my inspiration came from. I love Warner Bros. Tunes, and
that's awesome.
Yeah. I would have loved to seen him catch that thing one time. Like before Mel Blanc died, just catch him, and then next scene you see him, he's cooking him, but he looks like a chicken, just a little satisfaction for all those years.
That's too funny. I mean, the reverb thing sounds really cool. I know, I had initially seen that you were doing the 1484s, and I'm sure you went out with some bands that use them. I mean, I didn't know you were out with Lucinda.
Yeah, cool. That, in fact, it's kind of funny. The very first amp I can say I really built for an artist was for Lucinda, actually, and I have a kind of an updated version of that I call the Lulu, which is partially in deference to her, and that amp that I built for her, which is based on an old Valco parallel single-ended circuit. And I've built a few smaller heads. One's the Lulu, and another one is called the Varsity, which is kind of borrows a tone stack from the Magnatone Varsity. And that's why I kind of give it a little nod with the name there. And those are both kind of fun amps. And actually the band Tegan and Sarah tours with a Lulu and a Varsity, and they're neat, even though they're probably just kind of 7 to 10 watts. They've performed really admirably on big stages and small for those guys. And in fact, the guitar player Ted, who plays a Varsity, had me build him a master volume version of it, because he said sometimes they'd be shows and even the 7 watts was too loud sometimes. But the sort of neat feature that I built into those amps, which I'll have to give you some credit for, Jeff, because you kind of inspired me with one of your early designs. It has a switch on the front, like a selector switch on a guitar. And in the case of the Varsity, you can select between an EL34 that's voiced kind of like a British amp, or a single 6L6 voiced like a Fender, or in the middle position, you can have both those tubes on in parallel with each other. So you kind of have I label them a hot, warm, and then both together.
Nice
settings, yeah.
Be careful. You could be getting sued. I'm sorry.
Oh no! It's Jeff had a cool amp that you could select between 6L6s or EL84s.
Was that the dual stage 30?
That was.
And you did get sued over that.
Well, we got a cease and desist over that one.
Yeah. I did a single-ended version of that, but yeah.
I think you're probably safe there.
Yeah.
Except for switching the tubes, because somehow there's a patent on using a switch on tubes too. I don't know how the hell that one got through, but that's a whole nother show right
that's
there.
Another podcast.
Yeah.
That's a whole.
We'll just table that for now.
Actually, that's
right.
episode 2.
Oh,
if you go back,
if you go all the way back,
If you go back to episode 2, you can get that story.
You're right.
Yes.
Wow, way back to last year.
Yeah.
That's
this
awesome.
time.
Right. So that's cool, man. So you were out with Lucinda, you were out with Death Cab, you were out with who else might we know?
Oh, gosh, let me run down, I guess, semi-chronological order. And this is just since I moved out west. There was Lucinda, and then a band that I was a big fan of. It was fun to tour with these guys, Gang of Four, a British post-punk band. Yeah. And then after that, Death Cab For Cutie, and then the New York band, the Yeahs, which it was interesting because the guitar player Nick has something like 30 pedals in front of as many as 5 amps. So that was an interesting rig to take care of. And then let's see, after those guys, I did some work with Queens of the Stone Age, and then I ended up working for Kanye West for about 3 years. That was a real change of pace, and I had to learn a lot about computers. That was the Ableton guitar rig I was kind of referring to earlier.
Wow.
Belonged to his musical director, Mike Dean. And then after Kanye, I did a couple things this summer. Nico Case and Bob Mould, another punk rocker who I'm a fan of going back to my teenage years. And then
Bob?
Yeah, Bob Mould. Yeah.
Sugar.
Yep. Yeah. And he's a sweetheart. And then back with Death Cab For Cutie now, so it kind of comes full circle. It's certainly nice to be back working with a band that's a bunch of guitars, and I'm back with the amps that I built for those guys. I guess about 7 years ago now. So it was kind of neat to see those amps like 7 years down the road, a little more ragged cosmetically, but still hanging tough.
Yeah, I mean that is always a good feeling, man. You see people come through and it's like, oh God, I built that 10 years ago or something, and it's still hanging in there and sounding great. It's like that's, one of my early fears was that if I would go see a band that was playing an amp that I built
and poof.
And yeah, something happened. It's got to be the most embarrassing thing in the world. You
just kind of
walk away. I've actually had that happen, but luckily I was there on stage to run out and swap it out for the spare. I'll tell you, it's tubes every time.
It is.
Unless it's Matt Jones from Cowboy Mouth, and then it's vodka and orange juice.
Vodka and orange juice, yeah.
That'll do it too, yeah.
But then again, that wound up
Guinness into that Marshall, and that makes it sound real good.
that wound up just being tubes too.
Yeah.
Didn't you say he dried it out, put new tubes in?
It's been playing ever since.
And the yeast has been going ever since. Yeah,
just a little sticky.
Right. Oh, too funny. Well, I'm so happy to hook back up with you again and just hear about the success that you've had over the past 10 or 12 years, man. That is great. I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, it's been fun, definitely. And I'll tell you, working at Guitar Maniacs has been really pretty cool, too, mostly because, you see such different amps on the different coasts as a repair person. And
really?
I've just worked on so many cool old Fenders living out here, as well as, of course, there's a lot of musicians and collectors in the Seattle area. So, working on a aluminum chassis Marshall and a Park 75 and, oodles of old tweed Fenders and stuff. That kind of is satisfying as opposed to just fixing, 1,000 Hot Rod Deluxes.
That's for sure. Yeah, we just had a while back. We had Mitch Colby on, and he oh
cool.
He has resurrected the Park. He owns the Park name now, and he's doing a 75 and a 50 or a 45, something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, so he's actually, Jesse, he went so far as to have the proper knobs remade.
No way. Yeah, I saw a write-up on one of those, I think in Vintage Guitar or something, and man, it sure looked cool.
Yeah, I saw them last year at one of the amp shows that we did together, and he went all in, man. He really did.
That's cool.
So I don't know if you ever need any. I don't know how many he had to make, but if you need one, he might have an extra one.
No, that's a good thing to know. Actually, I have a buddy out here, Brent Bagby, who's another amp repair guy, and sort of like, I've always been more of a Fender guy myself, and Brent is like an obsessive when it comes to British amps. He's built these recreations of Vox and Marshall amps that are, he's, through eBay and stuff, picked up this huge supply of British parts, and he'll, for instance, he'll take like one of the Chinese AC30s, completely strip it, and then rebuild it with like all the right parts and make these just, virtual clones. Kind of, that's almost like I'm making clones in a way too of the 1484. That's definitely a powerful subculture in the boutique amp world, people who are kind of making these super authentic, really recreations of classic amps that are otherwise just too rare or expensive for most people to get their hands on.
Yeah, that brings me back. I had a question on the 1484 that you do. The weak link, we all know, well, anybody who works on amps, in those amps, we're the output transformer.
Yeah, and what the crazy thing is the popularity of those amps, I never thought I'd see the day, has led to, I think at least maybe Mojo and Mercury Magnetics. There's at least one company out there that actually makes like recreations of the original ones, like the right dimensions and everything, which is just crazy to me.
Wow.
But I actually based my design around a Wurlitzer organ transformer, which is the right wattage and also has 4, 8, and 16 ohm outputs, which is really kind of nice. And I also think there is a certain charm to vintage output transformers. Mm-hmm. That's another thing that I would get out of this organ repair place in Tacoma. I have kind of a lifetime supply of these output transformers they must have made 1 million of these Wurlitzer organs at some point in time, because a lot of them out there. But it's a good kind of 40 watts, a little bit bigger than the stock output transformer in those. So the original ones. And kind of a funny story, speaking of those, the very first, maybe the first 3 or, well, maybe more like the first half of those Silvertones that I built, which I guess I'm up to just about to build number 14 right now. I made a mistake, and I think it was due to a really bad photocopy or scan of the schematic, and I used a 22K resistor instead of a 2.2K. I kind of dropped the decimal point there, and particularly the ones that I built for Ben and Death Cab for Cutie, like, he's gotten so used to the sound of the wrong value that when I changed it, I've updated it kind of basically makes the output stage a little unbalanced, which while it's not so good on paper or a scope necessarily, it sounds great.
There's something to be said for asymmetry in different places in the amp. Some people like to get it perfect and perfect sine wave. It's not always what you want.
Yeah, and also not. I mean, I remember Steve actually years ago telling me, that the whole kind of matched tube thing was kind of a, just a sales pitch, because he's like, yeah, nobody had matched tubes back in the old days, and most players, like, they're not used to the sound of matched tubes. So certainly in the case of that mistake that I made, it's a good illustration of that, because I tried changing them to the proper value, and immediately he didn't like the sound of it. So I just went back to my mistake and just figured I'd call it good.
Right on. It's not a mistake. It's an experiment.
True. And it's actually, it's funny, I've built a few kind of tweed reproductions here and there that I use all what I call drifted values, because I think maybe Dan Torres is the person who pointed this out in a book of his that I kind of took to heart, which is that one of the reasons anything like an old pickup or an old amp sounds special and different than a new one is because the components have aged and they've drifted off of their original values. And, you could go travel back through time and buy a deluxe in 1959 and bring it back to the present and put it next to an old amplifier, and it's not going to sound the same because the values have all drifted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I've a couple times I've built ones with the values that are just sort of approximately what you would find in an old aged amp, and boy, it does make a difference.
It does. I mean, I knew guys way back that were like, this might get technical for people, but the plate resistors in the phase inverter of like an old Fender, they would take the 100 and bump it up to a 120. They would take the 82 and bump it up to 100 because they just kind of drifted up over the years and made it sound more like an older one.
That's too cool.
Yeah, it's all sorts of crazy things that we crazy people do.
Absolutely, and those old Silvertones are a perfect example of an amp with a lot of drifted resistors in them because they had really cheap parts, and B, they used really undervalued. They used these half-watt resistors where they should have been using 2 or 5 watt resistors. And every time I work on one of those, before the person even tells me what's wrong with it, I'm just like, believe me, I'm going to replace the same parts in this that I've replaced in every other Silvertone I've ever worked on, because the same parts in those things go south in every single one.
Yep. And they have strange power supply, and So you get used to what's going on after a while in those things. They're different than anything else, and it's cool that you're making them because they are kind of different than anything else out there. They're very unique.
Yeah, absolutely. The tone stack in particular, and actually speaking of old parts, it never ceases to amuse me. The original power capacitors in those things say guaranteed for 1 year.
Well, nothing like a guarantee, Oh my God, that's too funny.
It ran out.
It ran out. Well, Jesse, I'm sure your Acme stuff is guaranteed for more than 1 year. And
it
even
is
if it's
lifetime warranted, as a matter of fact.
Let's see, there you go. Except for tubes. Tubes, because we all know that.
Yeah. Whether that's my lifetime or the lifetime of the amp remains to be seen.
True that. But that's very cool, man. And
does he have a website? Do you have a website?
Yeah.
I have been slow on that, and I really owe a lot to a buddy of mine, Jason, the drummer in Death Cab For Cutie. He had a recording studio here in Seattle, and the studio sadly is no longer around, but he's archived his website, and that's really the only place people have been able to track down my email, and that's kind of led to the steady trickle of orders that I've gotten over the years. And especially with this move to LA, my intention is to devote myself full time to building and not really kind of part ways with the repair work that I've done over the years, and try to promote especially the reverb unit, just because there's a lot of amps out there, but there's not a lot of reverb units. And for people who really love reverb, I've been getting some good response.
Well, we can put your email address up on the website.
Oh, by all means, please do.
And the archived site, if you want.
Yeah, it was a recording studio called Two Sticks Audio, and if you were to do a web search, for Acme amplifiers, that's kind of one of the few things that pops up there.
Okay.
So
it's actually how I refound Jesse through Two Sticks.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly.
So it works, people. It works.
That's
You
right.
can
Thanks,
find 'em.
Jason.
Well, we'll have it up on our site, and then it'll stay out there with the show indefinitely, like all the rest.
Sure.
Excellent.
And if
Yeah.
I mean, if you do someday get a site, give us a heads
Just
up.
drop
and
us a line. We'll put it right up.
Yeah, we'll change
Absolutely. No, I've had quite a few friends over the years who design websites, and they're always just threatening to just build a site for me, even without my permission. So, it's just a matter of time. I just need to kind of make myself more available to meet orders. That's the thing. Is with my touring work, I've had to put some people off over the years, and it kind of hurts to lose a customer like that. But hopefully, like I said, the reverb unit takes me a lot less time to build. I can build about 3 of those things in the time it takes me to build an amp, and they're cheaper too. I've been selling them for $700, so they kind of are a little more competitive in the marketplace.
And just so because we don't get paid, but we'll use it. Squarespace. If you go to Squarespace, you can build a website in a matter of hours and be up and running.
I know quite a few people who have used that, and
they do us well.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit of a Luddite when it comes to computers. Like I said, when I was working for Kanye and his band, I really had to learn a lot, man, about software and computers and building redundant rigs like we were talking about earlier. That was kind of dragged me kicking and screaming into the 21st century.
Well, you bellied up to the bar and got it done, man. And once again, he didn't know that. He could have easily said no.
Yeah,
but he said yes.
Yeah, well, you got to challenge yourself,
Exactly.
I learned that over the years.
And now you can call me.
Right, there you go.
There you go. Good to know, absolutely.
Sometimes you got to say yes and figure it out later.
It'd be kind of weird when it's 3 o'clock in the morning and he's over there at midnight. I'll be like, hey, man, what's going on? What?
Well,
you got a what doing
I'm
what?
trying to work on the few hours of sleep that I get. I'll call you back.
Yeah. Well, the important thing is not knowing how to do everything, but knowing people who know how to do the things that you don't know how to do.
Networking, man.
Absolutely. Because nobody knows everything. And if you think you do, you don't.
Yeah, you don't.
You don't.
Yeah.
All right, Jesse, we could talk gear all night. You know that we could, but I think I'm going to wrap up the interview here. And I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day. I don't know if you're on tour right now or you got your hands stuck in a Silvertone clone somewhere, but thank you for taking the time.
Halfway between here and there, but I really appreciate the invitation too. This is a kind of a treat, and certainly just even getting to hear your voice again, Jeff, is it's really pretty great. So I'll look forward to getting together with you when I'm back east sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Please let us know, man. We'd love to come out and say hi in person again.
Yeah, man.
And see whomever you're lending your wonderful skills to perform. So anytime, man. Let us know if you're Baltimore or DC, somewhere close, and we'll get out there and say hey. Excellent.
Yeah, well, it'll be Death Cab. Those guys are releasing a record in this coming year, and I think we're going to be hitting the road in April. So it'll be, I'm sure, at least 1 or 2 passes through the greater metropolitan DC Baltimore area.
Awesome. Well, I'm totally looking forward to it, man. It'd be great to see you again after all these years.
Indeed. And I got to say real quick, I really enjoyed looking up the East Amplification site and kind of poking around. I'll spend some more time listening to some of your guys' podcasts and stuff.
Oh, cool, man. You should enjoy it, man. There's some great people that we've had over the past year or so. So we're gonna add your name to that list as well, my friend.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, and nice to virtually meet you there, Mick. I look forward
man.
to the reality version of that at some point.
Yeah, you come in town, we'll wire up some chassis, and
Stop trying to make him work for me again.
I'll put you guys to work if you're not careful. Yeah,
that's right. All right, well, Jesse, thank you very much again, and much continued success in this new year of 2015, man.
Likewise, and best of luck with the podcasts and all the information sharing. Man, you just can't do enough of that in this life. I think that's really what it's all about. It's one thing to learn all this stuff, but it's a whole nother thing to actually share it with people and pass that stuff on.
Right. Well, I mean, we really just enjoy bringing people to people. And. No matter what it is, if it's a manufacturer, if it's a tech, if it's a player, the builder, it's so much fun to share these kinds of people with everybody else that listens, because there are so many stories that nobody knows, nobody even thinks of, it's like,
sure,
they don't know what goes on behind the scenes in manufacturing or behind stage or, or in a player's mind or where this player came from. It's a lot of fun, man. So thanks for being part of the party.
Amen. And I'll stick around for that ID.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, fellas. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Jesse.
All right,
Take care. And there you have the story.
There it is.
There you have the story. That's it was good to speak with Jesse again after a while. He was
very cool dude.
Yeah, he's a really good guy, man. And I know why he's seeing the success that he's seeing, because he's just that kind of guy. He's really detail oriented, and he's into it.
I got to ask you this, and maybe I'm going to take a look at this while I'm rambling here. But his voice sounds like the guy from I Love You Man. And that actor, hold on, I'm going to find this guy's name.
Okay.
What is his name?
I don't know. I Love You Man.
Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd.
He sounds like Paul Rudd on the phone.
Interesting.
See, now all the listeners are going to be like, that's the dude from I Love You Man.
Love You Man.
Yeah, it was a great movie, by the way. If you get a chance, watch that movie. But I digress. So,
so that's very cool, and he's doing those Acme amps. Anytime he did something that he built, here, it was Acme. And it was he's. I can see that he's very much into the cartoon, genre of things, and he's such a great guy. So I'm glad to see that that's continuing for him. Man.
And we'll have his email address up there, man. So if you guys are interested in a tank, definitely don't hesitate. Email him.
Oh no, for sure. And there are some pictures on that studio website. 2 Sticks, I think it was. I'll have it up there because I did. That's how I found him through there. So we'll put that up there, and you can see some of his stuff. The cabinetry on the Acme, probably, I think it was the reverb too, but the 1484, the Silvertone kind of, and he only does like one channel of that amp, but that's all you need. I mean, that's
exactly.
It's known for that one channel thing.
Yeah.
It looks like the beveling on the edges looks like the corners and the edges of the old Silvertone stuff.
Cool. So
it's really retro. It's very, very cool. The front's all metal. It looks really stabile, and the cabinet angles and everything are all retro. So
cool.
It's a very cool looking product, and the reverb sounds interesting too. So maybe I'll have to hear one of those one of these days.
Yeah. So you had something you wanted to talk about.
Oh no, you were just talking about your strap before, and I have to thank you for giving my lovely other half, Petra, the suggestion for the anthology straps, because I got a couple of straps for Christmas too. So and
those guys were I sought those guys out a long time ago. Looked at them and I was like, one day I'll end up buying one.
There you go.
And that day never came. And so I just now I have to go admire yours.
Well, there you go. I'll I haven't showed them to you yet, so I'll show them to you.
Yeah, well, you know what? Maybe we'll put them up on the old Instagram.
Well, there you go. Snap a picture.
We'll take a picture or 10.
Make my new straps famous.
Yeah, and I apologize for not being as proficient on the website as I should be, but I've been having some serious health issues with colds and flu, and
everybody I know has been down. I'm trying not to get it, and you know what? As much as I love them, the pesky holidays get in the way too, and it's like everything just tends to get pushed back a little bit. But
we will be on it. I will promise everybody you will see everything we've talked about.
Yes. Oh, and well, by now you should, I think, be seeing. We compiled a list of all the guests.
Yes, that will be up.
Yeah, it should be up.
It should be up.
Yeah.
Yes,
of all the guests, so that any newbie to the site can just look at the list on the homepage and see what a selection of guests we've had over the years. And so, over the year plus.
Yeah, I may do, because I don't know. I have to look. I may do a page that actually says past guests, and what that'll do is give you the full list. You click on one of those, and it should take you to the archive.
There you go.
That's what I'm hoping I can do. If not,
that'd be a great page too.
You'll be able to see which week it was, and then you'll be able to go to the archive and then be able to find it that way.
But either way, there should be a compiled list, and it may get more active over time. But at least you'll be able to see who we've had, because we've had some pretty damn cool people.
We have had a ton of cool people, and it's been fun.
They've all been cool people. Every last one.
Yeah,
every last one's been great.
Yeah,
so.
minimal edits too.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a couple, but not many. And I mean, hey, you're going to have that from time to time.
We like to let it free flow whenever possible.
If they ever give us a request, hey, I said something I shouldn't have, we pull it, because we're not going to try to jeopardize one of our listeners or one of our guests.
No, none of
but,
none of them.
Yeah, so good times.
Good times.
Yeah, man.
And this was another good time. So
yeah, it was.
And we'll have more.
So until next time, my friend, I'm Mick Marcelino.
I knew that.
And you...
Wait, let me think about this one.
And
I'm Jeff Bober.
Yes. And we are still saying...
Onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @Amps and Axes. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage ampsandaxescast.com. Thanks for listening.